Hi all, Bones here from Oz Bantams again and progressing the race bike. So this morning we've had it out for a run-in to do a plug chop, which was absolutely perfect. So no major changes from the carby that I swapped over. We did time trial and it goes really well. Not as good as the number 2 engine and only by a second and a half over 800 metres, but it goes really well. And where I'm testing the bike, it's not the most ideal road surface, being a corrugated or a gravel road that's corrugated and got loose gravel everywhere. So yeah, a little bit challenging, I can tell you. So what we're doing with the race bike, as you can see, we've put the new race numbers back on. I couldn't have the original numbers, and you can see my mate Crossy, the sign rider, like he's just freshly painted that, and it looks like it's 50 years old. It's just a brilliant job. He's a very, very skilled man. What I've got to do now is actually make up a guard to stop your foot being able to go through, and obviously between the chain and the sprocket. So I'm just making up a template now, and we'll get this formed up and cut out and fit it up. So I've got our template cut out, so I'm pretty happy with that. And what I'll do is I'll mount 3 P-clips around the frame to support that plate. Now the reason for that is I don't want to damage this 70-year-old paint, and I want to be able to take it off when the bike goes back to the customer. So that'll comply with the racing regulations, and I'm pretty happy with that. Doesn't foul or anything on the rear brake, so that should be good. So our chain guard's all profiled, bent up. I'll put a rolled lip on the edge there. So I've just got to get some P-clips. My apologies for the wind probably blowing across the microphone as well. So yeah, pretty happy with that. That should come up alright. I'll give that a coat of paint and we'll get that fitted up. So another job out of the way, we're getting closer. We are getting closer. So I've just been on the phone to Makuni Oz, where I got the carbies from for these race bikes, and they couldn't have been more helpful. So Tom, the proprietor, ran me through a series of tests. He had, in his 35 years experience, had some issues, but not many. So he told me where to look and what to check for and blow through here and put fuel in there and everything like that. So it looks like the carby's all right. So I told him the story that in these series of videos we've been focusing on 2 race engines, but I've already done another race engine for a customer. And so it's running a VM24, and it's got, I use the baseline that bike's running to set up this carby. So talking to Tom, he believes that I use the pilot jet from the original race bike I've done for a customer as my baseline to start setting up this carby, and he just thinks that I'm nowhere near the range that I should be for the pilot jet size, so therefore I wasn't getting any adjustment or control or anything like that. However, it still perplexes him a bit why it didn't run even going up the jet sizes that I did, and why the VM26 with the 60 size pilot jet in it is running so well. He's really not sure, because the idiosyncrasies of the engine of the number 1 engine that I had the troubles with and the customer engine I've already done. They're basically the same porting spec. So he's scratching his head a bit, but he's going away to look at some more technical data to give me some insight. So I could set up the VM24, but I'm not going to worry about it because the VM26 I put on it goes so well and it's staying on. So can't complain about service like that when someone gives you that much time and that much insight as to potentially what the problem is. But I mean, that's also an issue because there's no baseline or standard for these sort of race engines, and you've got to feel your way through it. Hence why I've got a thermocouple on the head to measure head temperatures so I'm not cooking the engine and various other things. So a lot of it's a bit, well, most of it's trial and error and going by feel. But I can't complain about the service I got. Fantastic. The Flash number 2 engine is going really, really well. And so now I'm going to pull it down. And if you want to know why, it's still got a couple of gear selector issues that I'm not entirely happy with. So I'm going to investigate because I'm waiting for that next VM26 carby that's coming will go onto this engine. So I'll get into the gear selector mechanism again and just have a bit of a look. So just wiggling the cases apart. And that's interesting. So is that. Just found a bit of a rub mark on the, it's your gear indicator shaft. And at some stage this has had a centre punch mark, which is, might have been barking down the wrong tree, searching for this last time, might be binding up on here. Anyway, we'll keep looking and see what happens. So I'm just wondering that with that spring hanging off the end, whether it's losing a wrap or two of spring tension. So what I'm going to do, and it is a bit of a known racing trick, is to put another one of these caps on the other side to up the spring tension on this. But there doesn't seem anything else really untoward, but we'll try that, put it all back together, give it a go. So what I've done is put another one of these spring caps underneath, so that spring won't go down over that edge there, and I'll tighten up that spring pressure. We'll see if that works. So putting that little spring cap in there seems to have made the gears change a lot more positively. So what I'm going to do is put the gearbox cluster back in, just dry fit the cases together, spin the crank, and see if I can go through the gears alright. Because before it wasn't really. I've added a bit of spring tension to the selector spring as well, not a huge amount, just to try and help it not jump out of gear. So we'll see how we go. So I've just got the cases back together, and I'm hoping you can pick this up, but there's an impression in the shaft right there. Now, I'd actually linished a bit off of this to get rid of the burr that was around that punch mark just there. So now I'm wondering, well, I know that the gear indicator shaft, which is in the opposite case, that this sits up near, whether when I do the cases up, it actually jams up because I can select gears with the cases apart, but it's having trouble selecting them together. So, into the lathe, I'm going to face, I don't know, half a mil or something, a millimetre off that, doesn't really matter, it can have a little bit of float, and just see what happens. Looks like I finally got it. So what did I find? That spring that gave me the original grief. I don't know whether you can see it, but that wire is bent on more of an angle than this one, which is straight. And if you look at some of the old school ones, they're both bent like that. So they both come in like that to centralise around the peg. Whereas for some reason they've got this one straight, which puts the selector claw out. So it was still, if you can see, that's still sitting like that after you've done a gear change. So you couldn't, you would have to tap the gear lever down to get it to reset like that before you could select up again. So I'm about to go out and have a look at all my selector springs and see if they're like that, because I know I modified this and put a bit of weld on it, but it didn't really help as much as I thought it would. But anyway, we'll put the cases back together and we'll give it another go before we clean up all our mating surfaces and seal it all up again. Alright, so I've just put the engine case together. I haven't put any sealant on it or anything like that. I've sort of had enough for today, so tomorrow I'll pull it apart, clean the mating surfaces, reseal it, get the engine back together. But it is selecting gears alright now, so I'm just spinning the engine over with the conrod, and it's not having any issues now. So what was the ultimate fix? To be honest with you, I'm not quite sure. I've changed a couple of components around in there, and it works, and that's all I wanted to do. Sometimes I'll let it be a mystery as to why it wasn't working, but it was I'm pretty confident it was the bend in the wire on that spring, just that selector claw. And anyway, it's working. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I've certainly enjoyed it a bit more than the last one. So thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much to all my subscribers, and from all of us at BSA Bantams, we'll see you later.